Hey everybody, thank you very much for the time today. I'm Paul Peterson, co-founder, CEO of NextLeaf Solutions. We trade in Canada as oils on the CSE and down here in the United States on the QB as Oil FF. So I'm going to talk to you about our company today and our methodology and our story of who we are and what we do. And I think those of you interested in the extraction space will hopefully glean something interesting from this. We think we're doing some pretty neat things up in Canada where we're based. Our company, I had started it 3 years ago. Myself and our CFO were previously at Peace Naturals. We took that company through to exit and acquired by Kronos Group in late 2016 and started NextLeaf with the sole focus on focusing exclusively on extraction and purification of cannabinoids. We said from day one, let's never grow a plant. Let's instead be the best in this country at high purity, standardized production of THC and CBD molecules, and let's focus on performing a B2B solution for licensed cultivators, both standard and micro. So as a company, we currently own a portfolio of 8 issued patents and over 40 pending patents around industrial scale, cryoethanol through to molecular distillation. And what that means is that we think that our issued patents, which 5 of them are in the United States, allow us a competitive advantage over a lot of other large players, big tobacco, big alcohol, some of these large players that are certain to get into the cannabis industry. We think in this business, you've got to either be a house of brands that is able to drive a better price for your products, or you've got to be a company that has a stack of IP and is cheapest and fastest at performing your B2B solution. So where we fall into that is our company commercializes our IP portfolio through white label and toll processing. First question that we always get is, how's your extraction methodology different from what others are doing? And I think what we see a lot is there's a lot of companies doing crude extraction, and what we like to say is we go beyond crude oil into that high purity, standardized molecule, tasteless and odorless. We've been focused the last 3 years on molecular distillation. We think that our process allows us to produce THC and CBD broad spectrum distillate more efficiently than anybody that we've seen. And we believe that distillation is going to be the focus on kind of those higher purity extracts that are then used to infuse the 2.0 products that now are legal in Canada as of last week. So what we do differently is by removing the chlorophylls, fats, waxes, post-extraction. We're able to get to that higher purity molecule, but I think most importantly, we're able to do that at a scale that we haven't seen done before, and at an efficiency that allows us to drive a superior margin. So this is sort of a quick overview, I guess, of our process. And everyone always talks about, CO2 or ethanol or, what method you're using for your crude extraction. And what we've done is we've built a custom cryoethanol plant. It has inline winterization, media treatment, trace impurity removal, and solvent recovery. What this plant does, it allows us to process 0.5 ton a day of lower grade dried cannabis inline through one plant that replaces 6 CO2 machines. About the same output, but more importantly, I think we look at the bottlenecks, and often the bottlenecks are that kind of post-extraction phase of it. So off the single extraction skid, then the crude oil that's sort of at 60 to 65% CBD or THC then goes into our molecular distillation skid, which then we can take it from 65% concentration to high 90s, just depending on the client and what product they want to produce. But when we really look at this, we think that there's a great deal of intellectual property that comes in to extraction, purification, post-extraction. And I think the challenge is that as the industry matures, it's a race to the bottom. I mean, flour is a race to the bottom right now. Oil will be a race to the bottom. Everything's a race to the bottom. It's just a question of how quickly you get there. And we really believe that looking ahead 5-10 years, that the future of mass consumption of cannabis is going to be through the standardization of edibles, vape products, and kind of non-smokables, which we think will all use distillate to manufacture these products at scale. So looking at our business model, we like to use the mantra, turning garbage into gold. In Canada, there has been a tremendous challenge that large producers have had growing high-quality flower at scale. What we have is 180 tons of finished product sitting in vaults across the industry, and that's as of a few months ago, we're now the outdoor harvest are just going to add to that total. So it's a very interesting dynamic happening in Canada, which is the only market that we're currently operating in, where biomass for a company like NextLeaf is our largest driver of cost of goods sold. It makes up about 80% of our COGS. So as the price of flour and lower grade material comes down, obviously the margins for processors like ourselves, like MediPharm Labs and Valens, I think improve. And also I think why you're really seeing those two companies kind of leading the way in Canada the last 2 years. So we're very excited now to make the industry a bit more competitive. We think that our model of focusing on one part of the supply chain has allowed us to differentiate. What is, I think, unquestionable is that there's a lot of large producers in Canada that have underestimated the amount of R&D and the amount of focus required to get up to scale at a very efficient kind of extraction and extract production operation. We commercialize our intellectual property through toll processing. That's how we start as a business. Lower OpEx than going out there and purchasing biomass and selling white label products. Obviously, white label, I think, is an area that every processor wants to get into, where you're actually, manufacturing products under your client's brand. In Canada, we see this as a very, very interesting opportunity, and we think that the longer the United States stays federally illegal, the bigger the opportunity is for Canadian processors like NextLeaf. And what I mean by that is, when you look at what's happened in the last year and a half, Altria, Constellation Brands, that's $7 billion of investment into Canada with a population of 36 million people. We believe that both those companies decided to effectively invest in and control two large Canadian producers because Canada is a gateway to the world market, but more importantly, Canada is federally legal. And so we think that if the U.S. does stay federally illegal longer, you're going to see more CPG that come into the space. And what we know about consumer packaged goods companies, these guys don't want to grow plants. They don't want to farm. We think that the big opportunity with companies like Shoppers Drug Mart that has 2,400 retail locations across Canada, they're like our CVS or Walgreens, that as these guys get into their own in-house branded CBD and THC-based products, they're going to want to have these manufactured by licensed processors. We also see, I think, due to the success of MediPharm Labs and Valens, that a lot of these billion-dollar market cap companies that have initially said, we're going to do it all, we're going to be vertically integrated. I think vertical integration sounds great in a boardroom, and it's great when an industry is new. But growing cannabis and processing cannabis are very, very different businesses. So we think that it's going to be great for all the processors. And then our third sort of revenue stream is licensing our intellectual property. We currently have 2 licensing agreements, which I'll get into in a moment. But as a company that has been focused on developing IP, developing patents, arguably we have outperformed Canopy, Aurora, and every single billion-dollar company in this space. We've got more issued patents than every of these big players combined. We think that intellectual property licensing is how we will expand globally, having a stack of IP that you can take to other jurisdictions and have these products produced, we think is meaningful. And like in life sciences and biotech and pharma, we think that intellectual property and patents will become very, very important in the cannabis industry. We like to think about it as cannabis 3.0. 2.0 is all about products, which were legalized last week. We think 3.0 is going to be about companies having a differentiation through IP, through their patent portfolio. We know Canopy has invested very heavily into the space. They've got over 100 pending patents, 0 issued, and it was a very proud day for us when our patents started being issued in the United States over the last 6 months. So I'm going to skip through extracts because I think everyone here is pretty well versed in sort of what the opportunity is on extracts and oils versus flour. But here's a look at our production facility. So very, very small footprint relative to some of these million square foot greenhouses that people used to like to put press releases out about a year ago. Our focus is keep it tight, keep it lean. We've got a 6,000 square foot processing only facility. We're about 45 minutes east of Vancouver. This facility has been set up, designed to be able to process 270,000 kilos a year of cannabis biomass. We're not starting with that. We're starting with about 500 kilos per day, and then can scale that as the industry evolves. We have in-house analytical testing, and we think that where we are is very strategic, where in BC, within an hour's drive from our processing facility, we have over 9 million square feet of greenhouse production. This is existing greenhouses growing cannabis. We know that there's lots of quality issues. There's lots of lower grade biomass that comes out of these facilities. So we think we're strategically located to a lot of material, as well as, and I think most importantly, why we love BC is the micro cultivation market, or the craft growers. So there is 18,000 sites in British Columbia, licensed by the federal government to grow small scale. That was under the old program. Now there's a micro license that we're very excited about, and by definition, these guys have to work with processors. So we think that we're in a great place, and now it's all about execution. So looking at some of the formulations, our facility that I just showed you just recently got licensed only in the last month. What we've been doing over the last 3 years has been developing IP around process methodology and extraction, purification, and finally formulation. For us as a business, we are focused only on one product initially when we kick off our white label sales, and that's through vape pen manufacturing. We have a robot that we've been working with for filling, can do about 50 cartridges per hour. We think that the vape pen market in Canada is going to be fantastic. We think that some of the vape crisis stuff with illegal THC-based products in the U.S. will actually be a net positive for the legal marketplace in Canada, because we believe that it'll push consumers more rapidly into the legal market from the unregulated or illicit market. We've also invested heavily in R&D around emulsion and nanotech, and the reason for that is that we see beverages and edibles being kind of that frontier of bringing in mass market consumers. And I always say that the biggest challenge with beverages is onset time, right? So if it took you an hour and a half to feel the effects of a beer just would not be as popular as today. We were initially designing IP to try to speed up the onset time. We were working with an outside group of chemical engineers in Ontario, dairy formulators, that I think we're convinced what they were doing was very disruptive. We acquired the technology just in the last month. What it does, it is a nano emulsion technology that increases onset time. When I take THC in a beverage with this technology, it goes from an hour and a half down to about 10 minutes. So for us, we think this is a quantum leap in the industry. It can also be used in edible products as well. Now, this is very important because we have a partnership with a large bottling company in British Columbia. We think that this is one of, if not the most sophisticated bottling operations in Canada that we believe will be licensed in one of the first 2 or 3. They currently have an R&D license from Health Canada. The company's called BevCanna. We are the exclusive supplier of all CBD and THC that goes into their beverages. Why they're exciting is these guys can do 72 million bottles per year of THC and CBD beverages. And we believe that at the end of the day, it comes down to price, and you got to be able to operate and manufacture products at a scale that you can actually be more competitive. So we think through this partnership, NextLeaf has the exclusive supplier of water-soluble THC and CBD based cannabinoids. We license our tech, so we not only sell oil to them in bulk, but we're also realizing a royalty fee. Very excited because we think that this sort of sets the stage on a lot more relationships with consumer packaged goods companies that are starting to come into the space. This was a company that has a non-cannabis beverage sold in about 2,500 retailers across Canada. They came to us a year ago wanting to get into the CBD space. We're seeing this a lot from nutraceutical, life science, and natural health product companies. And we think that at the end of the day, companies like Bev Canna simply want a water-soluble molecule that's standardized, that has quicker onset. And at the end of the day, we are in the molecule business. So one other benefit, I think, in being in Canada is we're federally legal. We've been able to land one of the largest R&D grants for cannabis in Canada through the Sustainable Development Technology Canada. We've also received funding from the National Research Council, and this has really pushed forward some of the R&D initiatives. One of them is pesticide remediation. We like to say that's the billion-dollar problem that nobody's looking at. We think that by developing IP around being able to remove pesticides through chemical and mechanical means can create a great deal of value, and that's, again, one of our great R&D initiatives. So just looking at our team, we like to say that business plans are great, but you need a fantastic team with complementary skill sets to go out and execute. Very young team, myself and Charles Ackerman, again, came from Canada's first licensed producer, Peace Naturals, and Ryan Coe is the co-founder, extremely experienced operator. He has been in the cannabis industry for 15 years in the legacy market, and when I met Ryan soon after leaving Peace Naturals, he was doing stuff with molecular distillation that I had never seen at all the big companies, and initially started the company by vending in his IP, which we've built on through our team. Just a quick mention of our couple of our board of directors. Dr. Sherry Boudram just recently joined. When we were at Peace Naturals, she was at Health Canada, and she was our inspector, a senior compliance officer. She left Health Canada, now is on the other side of the street. Very excited to add her as a independent board member. Not only is Dr. Boudram a PhD in chemistry, but we think that her regulatory chops are going to add a lot to our board as far as her experience. What we've seen in Canada with CanTrust and Ascent and some of these companies, we've seen literally billions of dollars of shareholder value destroyed because companies that didn't follow the rules. Looking at our operational team, Tom Ulanowski, he had built British Columbia's first licensed producer. It was a company called Canna Farm, sold $130 million. Tom was the guy responsible for taking that company to exit as the manager, head of quality controls. He also got Canada's first concentrate product approved for sale. And then Dr. Krupal Pal is a PhD chemical engineer. We poached her away from oil and gas, and she has been instrumental in taking technology that Ryan Coe had developed in the legacy market over his 15 years and has scaled it up with her knowledge of scaling up biodiesel plants. And we really believe that now that allows us to have a competitive advantage. And then Taryn Gray, last but not least, is our IP director and has been phenomenal in out-executing a lot of large law firms on Bay Street who have been working on patents. And we think that over the next 12 months, for us, very important time as a company. As I mentioned, just recently got licensed. So as we looked at 2020, we're very excited now to start reporting some revenue numbers. Obviously, the guys at MediPharm Labs, I think, have done a great job to set the bar high, but also demonstrate how quickly you can scale an extraction, processing, focused business model. As we get into now the 2.0 products, we think that companies that have significant intellectual property around refinement will be able to ramp up their operations quickly. So looking at our cap table, to date, we've raised about $15 million. We went public in March, 108 million shares out, heavily controlled by management. We're all invested personally. We're all in on this thing, and we're focused on building a great business. So opportunity summary, and I'll just sum it up because I think we have about a minute here, and I would say any questions that we have, would love to answer them in the hallway after this. As you can tell, I love talking about what we do, and I love this industry. We've taken a bit of a different approach where we said from day one we'd never grow a plant. We've been science and innovation focus. We said, let's develop IP and let's use this IP as a self-defense strategy as big tobacco, big alcohol, these big players get in this space. There's never been a patent infringement case in Canada. We think that these sort of things are inevitable, and we think by continuing to develop IP that allows us to be the fastest and be the quickest will allow us to then execute our B2B strategy of selling bulk cannabinoids wholesale to manufacturers and empower brands that need to have a standardized input into their products. So that wraps it up, guys. Thank you very much for your time, and would love to open it up to any questions that anybody has.